Check, check. All right. So Motion Builder is pretty deep. I'm going to show you one particular way to approach things. It's pretty much the way that you'll see if you look up any sort of Motion Builder tutorial on YouTube, even including my own. But it is a fairly deep software, like I said, that is used across the industry and is quite customized in the industry. It doesn't even look like the same piece of software if you find some studios' Motion Builder build. So our main goal here is to take a 3D mesh that has a skeleton. If you don't have a mesh that has a skeleton, you can bring it into Mixamo and give it a skeleton. And merge that with motion capture footage. So the first thing I'm going to do, and really these two things are interchangeable. You can do them at different times. I'm going to go up to File, Open. And I need to bring in my 3D model, and I need to bring in my motion capture footage. So I'm going to find my 3D file first. Actually, you know what? Let's start from the very beginning. Let's go to Mixamo, and maybe I'll find a new character. Mocap guy? No, is that too boring for us? I feel like this guy, Ma J Lego, whatever his name is. Where's this guy from? I don't know who this is. This guy might be too crazy. Maybe we'll do both throughout the end of today, though. But maybe I'll just start with a more... Maybe I'll just do the zombie. Just to start with something very humanoid without a lot of protrusions when it comes to clothing or anything like that. And I'm going to download him. If you have a character from somewhere else that's already in a T-pose and has a skeleton, then you don't need to get a character from Mixamo. But I want to download the T-pose. The reason for doing the T-pose while we're recording motion capture at the beginning and end of each take will become more apparent today, hopefully. All right, that character is downloaded, so I'm going to go back to Motion Builder, File, Open. It's this really nondescript name, character 10, non-PBR. I click Open, and it presents me with this option with a lot of different things here. Open options. I don't really care about any of this stuff. But you know what? I could right-click on here on animations. You don't really have to do this, but we could be extra clean here. If you right-click here on the top of animation, you say Discord all animation. And that X's all those out. You could also say, I don't want any of the takes. I don't want any animation from this. I just want the model. Takes are just like takes in motion in Motive. Takes are animation. So I'm unchecking the import boxes, and I also right-clicked on the animation column here and said, actually, I forget what it actually said. Discard all animation or something like that. And it should hopefully import the model in T-pose. You don't really have to do that, but it's just good to start clean with the model to make sure that you don't have any other animations that could be conflicting or cause trouble in some different ways. All right, so here's my model. And we'll just do a little navigation here. Yeah? Whoa. You got a lot of other fun stuff there. All right, we'll clean all that stuff up in a second. But first we need to go over some basic navigation. So pretty much like Unreal or most 3D softwares, if you hold down Alt and hold on. Motion Builder's freezing on me. You hold down Alt and left click. You can orbit around the character. And this is if you chose the Maya controls for Motion Builder like I told you to do, which again is in Settings, Interaction Mode. I set it to Maya, so that's just what I'm comfortable with. Alt left click allows you to orbit. Alt right click allows you to zoom in and out. And Alt middle mouse button allows you to pan, just like Unreal. And if you select on things, like for instance, if you just go ahead and select one of the joints, which are these little balls, you can also marquee select things. If you hold down left click and drag it out. If you select something, just like Unreal, if you hit the F key on your keyboard, you will focus on it. So even if I'm all the way across the map over here, if I hit F, I will jump to what I have selected. Also, keep in mind that if you orbit through the character, it will kind of disappear and get a cutaway version. So if it looks weird like this, it's because your perspective camera is currently through the character, which isn't really a big deal. It's just, it's going to look weird. So if yours isn't super clean looking like this, it's probably because your file had a lot of other things in it. Cameras, perhaps, second characters, weapons. It's hard for me to say exactly what your character had in it because I don't know what sort of file that you're importing. But we can get rid of things that we don't need in a second. Some other basic things that I want to show you first is these columns up top here, or these drop-down menus. View and display. These also have keyboard shortcuts. Right now, we are in perspective view, just like the perspective view in any sort of 3D software, just like the perspective view in Unreal. Perspective view is what this looks like. There are other views. There are orthographic views. There is a schematic view. Let's take a look at what those look like. If I go to orthographic, I have the option for front view, back view, right view, left view, top view, bottom view. If I go to front view, this can be a super useful view. Again, I can use Alt and right click to zoom in, pan around, but I don't have perspective. I can't Alt left click in here because orthographic views don't have perspective. You can't spin or rotate them. This is a straight on view without any perspective. This sort of view is useful because you can easily identify if your character's feet are on the floor. What does an actual T-pose look like? Well, that looks like a pretty good T-pose to me. The fingers are relaxed. They're not straight paddle hands where they have zero rotation. They're kind of relaxed, but it's a pretty solid standard T-pose. So these views can be useful to be able to see those sorts of things when you're trying to line up and retarget your character. This will make more sense when we actually start to do it. You can always go back to perspective view, view, perspective, perspective producer, or producer perspective. There's also keyboard shortcuts. So if I switch these views today, this is how I'm switching them. The other view here is the schematic view. The schematic view is a visual hierarchy of the things in your scene which includes the mesh itself and the hierarchy of the skeleton. The spine bone's connected to the hip bone. The spine 1 bone's connected to the spine. The left and right shoulders are connected to the spine 2. The neck's connected to the spine 2. The head's connected to this neck. The top of the head's connected to the head, which is connected to the neck. This is just a visual hierarchy of your skeleton. But also, this is another way for you to select things in Motion Builder. If I wanted to select everything having to do with the left leg, from the left foot to the left thigh to the left calf. I could select it all here if I wanted to. And then if I went back to perspective view, I would have all that selected, which I don't have X-ray mode on, but there it is. Now I have all of the left leg selected. Do you have to do that to select things? Absolutely not. It's just one way to select things. It's also one way to visualize what exactly is in your scene, which is what Motion Builder calls everything that's happening in this window right now. That's why it's called Scene down here in the Navigator tab. For those of you that have a lot more garbage in your shot or in your scene, you can go ahead and select all those things and delete those things very easily in the schematic view. Or you can do the traditional click on the scene and see everything in here. For me, mine's pretty straight up. I have the mesh, which is the CH10. I didn't call it that. That's just what its default name was. And then Mixamo Rig, which is the skeleton. If you want to, you can rename these things. I'm fine with this for right now. If you want to expand these hierarchies, you can always click on the little plus icon to make the children fly out of there. This is one of the very clunky parts of Motion Builder, expanding these hierarchies. Let's take a look at how to do this more cleanly. So if I wanted to see the hierarchy of my entire skeleton, I could click the plus here and 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 plus, 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 all the way down, which for like 50 some bones or joints, that's really annoying, right? One way to quickly open all of those up is to right click on, in this case, my skeleton. And then you can go to expand branch. And that should expand everything. You know, this is really simple Motion Builder 101 sort of stuff, but these things are going to become critical when we start retargeting to our motion capture footage. So now I have this entire hierarchy expanded. You can also do the opposite. Right click on the hips again. You go to collapse branch, and it collapses everything. I'm going to expand the branch again. This is a useful one. What if you want to select everything in the branch? Go to select branch, and it will select everything that is parented to that root that you have selected. So right now I'm clicked on the hips. If I right click and go to select branch, it's going to select everything. But if I click on just the shoulder and I go to select branches, it's just going to select everything that is parented to the shoulder, all the children of the shoulder. Which makes sense, right? It's pretty straightforward parent-child relationships, like in any sort of software that has that feature. So pretty basic thing, but kind of critical to know in terms of getting around in Motion Builder. So if you have something in here that shouldn't be in here, well, I could just start doing this, to be honest. If I go in here and I want to get rid of this mesh, or you want to get rid of something else that's in there, you can always just right click on it and go to delete and confirm. Pretty straightforward, right? If I go and right click and delete on my hips, it gets rid of the hips. Got rid of the hips there. No hips, but it kept everything else. This is one instance where it becomes mission critical to select all branches. Because if I selected all branches, I could delete everything at once. Instead of now, you know, I have to go back and delete more stuff, which is annoying. Even if I shift select these and I say delete. Look, it just got rid of the parent. It didn't get rid of the children. So if you want to delete everything, you really have to say select branches and then delete. And then it will get rid of everything. And now I have nothing more in my scene. It's empty. Little word of warning. Another annoyance with Motion Builder. Right now I'm trying to undo to get back everything that I just messed up. But undo, not that useful. Save often in Motion Builder because it will crash on you. And also, should you want to go back a step, undo won't always work. So I like to save iterations of my characters. All right, I opened everything up. Save. Call that, I don't know, character number 1, setup, underscore setup, or whatever you want to call it. And then go to the next step, the characterizing. All right, character 02, underscore characterize. Go to the next step, retargeted. Save multiple versions of your file as you're walking through the process, as you're building through the pipeline. So that if, heaven forbid, the software crashes or you goof up, you can go back, because I would not rely on the undo like you can in some other softwares. Unreal is a software that's really good at the undo button. Not Motion Builder. So I'm going to have to start completely fresh because I just blew up my file. So file open. What was I using? CH10. Good, good, good. Uncheck those takes. Open up. All right, I'm back. Got a couple questions. How do I do what? The spine? What do you mean, show it in here? That's a good question, because that's what I was going to show next. The next drop-down menu here is display. These are keyboard shortcuts that you should know. Control A. Also Shift H and Control H is useful too. It's easy to accidentally hide things. Normal mode is not going to show you any of the bones or the joints through the mesh. You might see like the top and bottoms of ones, and the one on the top of the head there, and the one on the tips of the fingers, or just because the joint is bigger than the mesh here. That's why we see it. But I don't see any of the ones inside of his guts here because his body's blocking it. So Control A will allow you to cycle between normal, which is meshes. The mesh hides the joints. X-ray shows you the joints through the mesh. And then model only, which hides all of the joints and just shows the mesh. And really, you alternate through all of those all the time. Control A is the shortcut. Otherwise, you can get them from the drop-down menu up top here. More questions? Any other questions? All right. Okay, so I have my mesh in here. And, this is a standard character mesh that the skin is bound to it because it came from Mixamo. I could, do manual animation here if I wanted to. You could also do that in Unreal. But, it's rigged. So now we need to put motion capture on it, which is the next step. So next step, go to File, Motion File Import. File, Motion File Import. And browse to wherever your FBX files for your motion capture shoot is. Pick your favorite one. Or maybe you don't even know what it looks like yet. I guess that's the first step for your any project with motion capture, is just to slap it on a character and see what it looks like, right? Review it, and then start to make cuts from that. Thank you very much for the group that gave me their motion capture footage. That's what I'll be demonstrating today with the lovely Super Shy Take 2. Beautiful stuff. So I click open on that, and it gives me these options. FBX files have the option of holding multiple. It's got really dark. FBX files can hold multiple animations in them. This file only has one animation in it. Almost all of the files that you'll be using only will have one animation in it. But should you somehow get multiples in here, this is where you could specify which one you wanted to import. In this case, there's only one, so there's not really much for me to do. Import. All right. Now I have a bunch of backup dancers here for my lovely zombie. Question? Very small skeleton. Was your performer very small? That was a joke. If that is the case, it's probably scaling based off of your character. But we could try. Let me try something real quick. Stand by, everybody else, for a second. If you select the root, of your whatever your motion capture footage is called, just the top level, it should put a selection on the ground here. Then you can just hit the R key to get scale, or alternatively you can, just like Unreal uses W, E, and R for translation, rotation, and scale. Motion Builder, here's translation, here's rotation, here's scale. Also the W, E, and R keys, which is a very good question. This is good to know. So I'm hitting the W, E, and R keys on my keyboard right now. And if you look over here on the right side, you'll see that these different things are being selected. I can't zoom in and do this at the same time, but W, E, and R, and they're getting selected. I would go to scale, and then you should be able to pick the middle box and uniformly scale up your skeleton, or scale it down, whatever's appropriate. And this is good tip for everybody to know. The idea with retargeting is we're trying to get our skeleton to be similar in size and proportions to our character. Question? How you import your motion file? Or did it, what's it saying? What's this up? I just said, oh, I got it. This is motion capture, right? It's there on Bash. Is this two different people? Who else has very tiny motion? Somebody during break, somebody can give me one of their thoughts, and I'll try to come up with a better solve. Yeah. Yeah. Which I'll try to figure that out. In the meantime, same problem. Everybody else looks like mine. Maybe not two people, but basically appropriate. Yeah. They are occupying the same spot, but they're not causing issues with each other, right? It's just you can't see one or the other. That's okay. That's okay. It's just when you did the T pose, you lined up in the exact middle, 000, which was precise. You can if you grab onto the root, you can just move it off to the side. You're just gonna have to watch it. Actually, for the people that motion captures are messing up, there is, we can use in the asset browser down here in the tutorials folder, tutorial section. You can grab some of this other motion capture that's built into Motion Builder. There's also characters in here too, like a little gremlin guy. Tutorials. And here there's this little alien dude, Pepe mocap. You could use that instead. Just drag this into your scene. Just drag it into your scene. Told you Motion Builder was annoying. Otherwise, if it's messing up, you can just watch for right now. Actually, you know what? Just because I dragged that in there, I messed everything up already. So I'm going to completely start over again. All right, so file, open, character, open, motion file imports, find Super Shy Take 2. Okay, we got 2 characters here. And if I scrub the timeline, you can see this amazing dancing happening. Some other things that we have going on here. So the timeline, obviously, that you can scrub like any timeline you've ever seen before. Here's the frame count. Here's our play buttons, our reverse buttons, whether we want it to loop or not. Also, the frame rate, not the frame rate, but the play rate. You want to speed it up like 2x so you can look at it much faster. You can also slow things way down. So I have be playing this and then you speed it up to 3x. Now it's playing at 3x. But I could also slow it way down. Or maybe even more. This is useful for reviewing things, making sure limbs don't collide through clothing, that sort of stuff. Not right now in skeleton view, but once we retarget and we actually see the zombie doing the dance, this is where we start to be more meticulous with reviewing our footage and then eventually making adjustments. All right, let's go back. T-pose. I just want to say this mocap character right here, this T-pose is rock solid. This one's not bad either, but there's a little droop here. The hands are a little heavy, you know. But this one, A+. Look at that. Whose is this? Oh. Both pretty good. Oh, I see though. Look. Good this way, but if you look at it from the top, it's a little bit too huggy, you know? You win some, you lose some. That's all right. So the reason that I look at this is because the software is not that smart. It's just doing what we tell it to. We're the smart ones. And we're telling the software that this pose of the skeleton is supposed to correspond with the skeleton of the zombie. So if I say that this is a T-pose, I'm just telling the software this is a T-pose coming from motion capture. And this is a T-pose of the zombie. You're going to end up with really weird results because they're not the same thing. Retargeting is about matching the same thing to the same thing. You tell the software, all right, these match, retarget to this. A T-pose for your motion capture matches a T-pose for your character. You do arms up for your character or an A pose for your character, which you see a lot. You do an A pose and you try to say that that's a T pose. You're going to get weird results. After we do this process correctly, I'll try to break it for you. But let's just go through and try to do it properly now. Just in the interest of simplicity, because Unreal is only going to let you import one at a time anyways, It's great that you recorded motion capture simultaneously. That's fine. But for our purposes in Unreal, we're going to need to get rid of one of them. Okay. You can always come back and then do the reverse and bring the other one into Unreal. But right now, we need to just get rid of one. You don't really need to delete it, but for simplicity's sake, I am going to delete one. So how do we delete everything? Identify the one you want to get rid of, select it, but then right-click, select branches. Remember, we want to get rid of everything, not just the hips. Select branches. That means everything's selected here, all the way down, right? Now I can right-click and delete. Confirm. Delete. And now that one's gone forever. So now would be my my chance to adjust things. You may notice right off the bat here, actually if I look at this from a straight on view, the feet are not on the floor for some reason. Maybe that's how the motion capture markers were placed. Maybe you have a motion capture actor that can levitate. It's amazing. Maybe they're actually standing on something. But when it comes to retargeting, I'm saying that the bottom of the feet are actually right here instead of on the floor. It could be an issue. We're going to see what happens when we just do it by ourselves, but then we'll come back and fix it. Also, there is the hug of the T-pose, you know. That's different. If I look at orthographic top view, see, this is fairly straight. There is a little bit of a bend. But then this one is, much more of a arc here. All right, so the process of retargeting. Let's just do it and then see what happens. So maybe I'll go ahead and save right now. File, save as. And I'll just call this my first motion builder. And I'll just call this imported. You know, I didn't do anything besides import them. Save. So I'll always be able to go back to this now instead of starting from 0. So now we need to go through a process called characterizing. So in the asset browser, put asset browser tab in the bottom right here. You click on characters. There's all these little creepy late 1990s looking icons on there. Character. I want to drag the character onto the hips of both the mesh and then the motion capture skeleton. I can drag it on in the viewport. I could drag it on in the navigator view. That's either one is fine. Also, pay attention here that from motive, we have a root bone. The root bone is typically placed directly on the floor between your character's feet, on the floor below their hips. The root is not the hips. Don't characterize the root. Characterize the hips, okay? Which is fine if you click on in the viewport. See, when I click on the hips, it actually selects the hips here, not the root. But if you're dragging it on in the outliner, it can be easy to accidentally put it on the root. We're in the case of the Mixamo character. Mixamo character doesn't have a root. It just has the hips as the top level of the hierarchy. All right, let's characterize the character's hips first. At least that's what I'm going to do. It doesn't really matter which order you do. So I'm going to grab the character from the asset browser, and I'm going to drag it onto the hips and let go. And it's going to say characterize. And I'm going to click characterize. And it's going to say, is the character standing in a stance pose, which is a T pose, in the positive Z axis? And is it a biped or a quadruped? What is the positive z-axis? Z is coming out towards you as the computer operator. I can't rotate right now because I'm zoomed in, but if you look at that little diagram right now, the purple or blue axis there, Z is coming towards us, right? And yes, they are facing the positive Z. And this is a biped. 2 arms, 2 legs. So click biped. And you might get a little pop-up over here, but other than that, nothing really seems to happen. That's fine. What did happen is that we have a new character section down here. Question. Yeah, make sure you're really on those hips. That's another good reason to do it on the navigator rather than in the 3D viewport, because you can slip and really zoom in there if you want to do it in the viewport, which is where I usually do it. The only thing that really happened is that in the character section, we now have what's called a character and the default name of character. I always go in and rename this. So I'm going to right click on character, go to rename, and I'll just call this something appropriate like zombie. So I have done what's called characterizing the 3D mesh, which in my case is the zombie. Now I need to characterize the motion capture footage. So same thing, select the hips, go down to characters, character, drag character onto the hips. It's going to say, do you want to characterize? Yes, click characterize. It's going to say, is this a biped? Yes, click biped. And now I have another character in characters, which I always like to call mocap. Once you get into using Motion Builder, you can import multiple models at the same time. You can import multiple motion capture takes. It's useful to be able to name things, rename things. So I'm going to call this mocap. Or what was this file actually called? Shy Dance or Shy Smile or something like that? Super Shy? There you go. So now I have 2 characters, which I've renamed. Otherwise, it's character 1, character 2, character 3, which is a little confusing. Zombie and mocap. Question. The hips. Correct. Which, if you do it in the viewport, you can't. It's difficult to select the root. Bottom right. Yep. All right. That's it. Now the magic happens, which is just clicking some drop-down menus and saying that the zombie should use the motion capture footage. This is the human IK window, which is also available in a lot of other Autodesk softwares, like Maya, for instance. What we have to do is we have to define the character, which in this case, Motion Builder assumed that it was the last one that I made, mocap. That is not true. The character is the zombie. The character is the 3D character. The source where the motion's coming from is the motion capture. Okay? Which is why I call these things their names. The source should be mocap, which it won't let you select when you have something else assigned to it. Can't select it right now. So I have to change the character. What do I want the character to be? I want the character to be my 3D model, which in my case is zombie. Zombie. Now I have to go and click source. Uh-oh. And the motion capture footage is not available. Let's hope that this is just a motion builder bug. No. I think I might have messed up in between going back and forth between computers, so let me just recharacterize this. Character zombie. Actually, let me delete both of my characters. Characterize, biped, character, rename, zombie. Characterize the hips. Characterize, biped, mocap. There we go. Sometimes, for whatever reason, it doesn't pop up in the menus. I swear I did it right, but I obviously didn't in between trying to help out. But if for some reason that it doesn't pop up here, just delete your characters and recharacterize everything. When I mean characters, I just mean delete these things. You don't have to delete your whole skeleton and your mesh in the scene. Just delete your characters. Whether it doesn't pop up or you characterize the wrong thing, just delete your characters. You don't have to start all the way over. Or motion builder just being dumb, who knows? As soon as I say motion capture source, your character should snap on top of it. And now this is where we get the fun to happen. So now we have our lovely dance on our lovely zombie. It's a real work of art here, especially the hip shakes there. Look at that dead man go. Oh, I like that was a nice move at the end there. I think that we're gonna clip that and use that right here. Woo! Woo. It looks pretty good. So now it's a matter of just going around and this is a longish motion capture take. 924 frames. Probably closer to 800 after you trim off the touching the phone on the ground, I assume, and then doing the T-pose. But something to think about when you're recording your motion capture in the studio, shorter is the better, especially for organizational process. Also, this is why it matters to go into the motion capture shoot knowing what scenes you need to actually record. Your storyboards say, all right, I need motion capture footage of picking up something off the ground. All right, go ahead and record that. Cut. That's the end of that shot. Motion capture picking up off the ground. Then go do another shot. It's a brand new thing. So these come in as separate files. So you're almost organizing your motion capture based off of your scenes and your cuts that you've already storyboarded out rather than recording a huge long thing. The only time that wouldn't be true necessarily would be if you're recording, one shots where you need it to be one long take. But less footage, easier to work with. Yeah. I would roll it all up. Start over. When you import the mockup, it could be a couple. There's lots of points there, potentially. Let's review. It's just yeah, don't include stuff. Then be careful. Tips again. What? It's in Denver. Wow. They are just really long. All of the joints are blown up, so it looks like a mess. But shoot the joints down, you can actually see it. It goes to properly. It's even down. So now you see a whole thing. I don't know. I don't know. So in the meantime, you just want. It will. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I don't know the simplest way to. All right, let's go to. Let's just do one. Now, The process is right, but now there's no connection. Yes, so make the 400. Yeah. Whoa, what's the place? Yeah, have those cans? Whoa. I think this is the case. Throw it all over and start over. You don't have to close the program. It's fine. Pull the plug on the computer. Throw it out the windows. Let's see. Yeah, when those sorts of skeleton errors happen, when the hands are feet, then it's time to reset. We got animation. Nothing. Open up mine for a second. And with that scene, with that to do it. Maybe you picked one that was corrupted or something. I don't know. They should all have some sort of movement on them. Oh, one sec. Oh, okay. When you want to do that, that's fine. Feel free. Just find the best thing. It's just like that. Right, right. It's like that. It's otherwise it's just like just this one, just like that. Were all y'all with the small bones in the same group? We gotta redo that group. Yeah, it's small. One of you's gonna have to give me the file so we can get it. Maybe in the export settings it was. I'm not sure. It's there. It's just shrunk down, and I wonder if it might be better just to re-export from motives. Yeah, use that. Yeah. So go to display. That's fine for right now. We're just gonna plug issues. So we should make adjustments. But yeah, this. So let's just get it. So we need to go to characters. So it's one that. Um, um, to be fair, we just need to and do the same thing to look at this. Why do I have to press that character on this? Is another character. Oh, fighting change I click on go fighting, delete it again. All okay, change the character from characters. Girl again. He understood girl. Just use the names. P girl too. Let's keep it. Change character to character one. Oh, speakers in there too. She's not eager anymore. Character 1 now. A new and improved character 1. That's fine. So if you want to stay, this is starting out. You want to stay. Yes, now you got it. It will snap back in. It will snap back, but you give it 0. Did you not say it? I see. Yeah. That's exactly what that's perfectly fine doing the T-pose. Actually, the easiest way is to just select-always 1, 2, 0, and then but you can manually do it too. But you have to do that before you characterize the process. When you characterize it, it says this is a T-pose. So if you characterize in this pose and then adjust it, you end up with like oh yeah, don't do it before. Do it before characterizing, or delete your existing characterization. And all right, I'll open that and see if I get the timing. So we'll see if it's the file or if it's you. It's probably the file. But you exported all of them together, right? It wasn't like you came back and
I did another and I did the same, but that might
maybe something changed.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to narrow it down.
It is a different file compared to the class.
Yeah. But it's all of them. Yeah, because you exported them all together, right? Where's the file? Oh, any of these? All of them are messed up. I'll try sword because I saw sword was one of them that was messed up. All right. As expected, lots of problems. That's all right. But we're going to move forward and then we'll come back and try to understand some of these problems. And also, I'll show you how to make adjustments and stuff. But now we have this in Motion Builder. We have this lovely dance happening. We have the little back heel kick right there, which I love. I'm just going to, I'm going to trim this down a little bit. So maybe I'll type in, just like any software that has a timeline, and you can set in and out points. So this is the in point, and then over here is the out point. I don't want to export the entire animation. So I'm going to set like, I don't know, 700 here. And then wherever it goes out, because I don't really care about the T-pose at the end. Just right there. You can always trim it in Unreal too, but also it imports faster, smaller file size. So now I've narrowed down my work area to just the prime position that I want. I'm very happy with that. Now, what do I do with it? Well, this would be a good opportunity right here to save as and call this, I don't know, characterized. I can't take this and bring it straight into Unreal. I need to process it. Even if I save this out, file save as, I can't save this out and use it in Unreal. Wow, this recording is going to have a lot of dead time in it. Enjoy it. I need to process the skeleton. I need to do what's called plotting this to skeleton to make this usable in Unreal. So after you're happy with it, your animation works, you do all your cleanup and all that stuff. We haven't looked at any of that yet. I'm skipping forward to exporting it because I want to get to that for sure. You want to click on this blue button up here and go to Bake to Skeleton. When we come back from break, we're going to look at plotting it to Control Rig for editing purposes. But for right now, we're just going to say this is beautiful as is. So I just want to get it into Unreal. And what this is going to do is it's going to plot the animation to the zombie skeleton and essentially bake the keyframes for every single frame of animation to that skeleton, which is how Unreal likes it. So bake, plot to skeleton in the blue button. This is destructive, so this is why it's good to save file, save as before you go and do this, because you can't go back. Bake, plot to skeleton. So now the mocap disappears. Now we don't even have a source anymore because there is no source. I've taken the source and I've translated it to the zombie skeleton and then gotten rid of the source. So now the zombie is this motion. It's not just using it from whatever source you may have up here. So now I can go to File, Export, or File, Save As. I'll just call this a plot for Unreal, or whatever you think is relevant. And that saves, and I should be able to import it into Unreal like any other animation file from anywhere. Another thing to think about is, remember when we were importing multiple animations from Mixamo, I had you import a T-pose. Maybe that's something that you export to Unreal first before you put any motion capture on it. And then when you're importing new animations for the same character into Unreal, you're just importing the animations. You're not importing an entire new character, even though it's the same. Ultimately, it's the same zombie. I just have multiple meshes for it. In this case, I didn't do that, so I'm just going to have a one-off animation of the zombie. All right, let's see what happens now. Moment of truth. Import. Plot for Unreal. Wow, 118 megabytes. That's a lot. Okay, import. No skeleton. The skeleton hasn't been selected yet. I'm importing everything, not just the animations. Everything else is good. Good. Import animations. Remember, teacher, why is my thing not animating? It's because you didn't check the import animations box. All right, moment of truth. Oh, yeah. Look at that beauty. Level sequence. Pop this baby onto sequencer. Add an animation for it. Dream come true. Look at that. Did you ever think that lovely animation would be on a zombie? Now it is. And that's most of what you need to know to be able to achieve the final project. Or even, especially next week's project, but even the final project. It's, I don't know if there's too much to even clean up here. I mean, look at those zombie fingers. Like, I'm feeling it. It's like Michael Jackson Thriller almost. But maybe in post production, you decide, you know what? I want those zombies' hands to be stretched out a little bit straighter. I don't want them to be straight up like this. I want them to be reached out, you know? Even though that wasn't in the motion capture file, we can totally edit that in Motion Builder in post production. Or I don't know, maybe you didn't like the leg being kicked up. Maybe you want it kicked up even higher, even cuter, right? We can do that in post production. Or make adjustments to the fingers or whatever. Or if you're just happy, ooh, we even got some air here. Look at this jump. And before importing too, in Motion Builder, you know, I just raced through this to get it into Unreal. But like this wrist right here, I know it's a dead guy, but like the wrist seems a little, saying unnatural seems weird, but you know what I mean. Like there's a little pinching going on here. This is something, I can do a little bit of that with my wrist, I suppose, but it's not like a normal movement I do. Just being aware of any sort of, or even this one's worse, even really exacerbates that texture seam right there. Like those sorts of things, even beyond improving the animation, those are things that you should clean up regardless. And that's stuff that we would clean up in Motion Builder. Perhaps frame by frame if it's particularly bad. But this starts with proper marker placement in the studio. If you have markers that are going on the wrist and you don't put them on the wrist bones, instead you put them like 2 inches up the forearm, it can cause problems. So marker placement is where this first starts. Bad marker placement is just going to make you have to do more post-production cleanup, which everybody hates. How happy he is. Anything else though? Is it weird that the toe bends down here? I don't know. It could be, it happens so fast that you probably don't even notice it. That's another thing too. Like, will anybody notice it? If you're going frame by frame at super slow-mo mode in Motion Builder, freaking yourself out, just play it at normal speed. If you can't see it at normal speed, nobody's going to notice it. Except the psychos that are playing at your YouTube video at super slow. So those sorts of cleanup things we'll go over after break because it is crucial. Questions beyond bugs that we've already talked about? Okay, so when we come back, cleanup, and I'll talk about adjusting the T-poses before retargeting, because that's something we didn't do. We kind of just rolled with the more hugging T-pose, which was okay, but I'll show you how to get a perfect T-pose. Other sorts of pinching down here in this knee, maybe, or any sort of texture stretching. just a lot to keep track of. All right, let's come back. Let's come back at 220. Make sure to be here at 220 because we have a lot more to go over. Not 230, not 240, 220, 220. And also somebody remind me to start. Lucky. All right, like I was saying, where we ended up, putting the animation into Unreal, getting it to animate after we plotted it to skeleton in Motion Builder. You know, if you get to this point, then you're good. Actually, this animation looks pretty great too. There are the things with the wrists that we looked at, and maybe the toe, but we'll clean those up next. So one of the reasons that I tell you to save out multiple versions of Motion Builder is that once I plotted this to skeleton for Unreal, you know, I can't go back. I can't unplot it for skeleton easily. So that's why I tell you to save iterative versions of your Motion Builder file. So if you screw up, you can always go back. You don't have to start at 0. So for our purposes right now, I just loaded back my my characterized file, and now I'm back at the characterization. I haven't plotted anything to a control rig or to skeleton yet. So if we want to fix things, whether it is an error or if it's just an aesthetic improvement that you want to make, doesn't necessarily have to be an error. We need to bake to a control rig. A control rig is a very approachable feature in rigging that allows you to easily modify things and edit, say, move the hand around, and that brings the entire chain of joints with it rather than having to animate each joint individually. You know, for instance, if I wanted to animate this arm up, I could just move it up, sure, but then I might have to animate all the other individual ones as well. If I turn this to a control rig, it makes things a lot easier. Think of a control rig sort of like for our purposes, as an intermediate step to get to your final desired animation outcome. So just like we plotted to skeleton with this blue button here, after you have the characterization done, after you have looked at the timeline and dragged it and you're happy with the animation and all that. Why is no animation happening all of a sudden? Uh-oh. Something got messed up. Let's go back. Don't save. Open up. Oh no. Oh, right on time. We have animation problems with Motion Builder. Let me reload. See if we can get it fixed. All right, I'll go back even further and just do it real quick. X-ray. Characterize the hips. Characterize. Actually, you know what? Before doing the control rig, I'm sorry, there was something else that I wanted to show you that was more simple. Before characterization happens. All right, so I'm going back to my file right now, just where I have the mocap data and the 3D model imported. I haven't characterized anything yet. We're in the T-poses, right? So if you have, say, motion capture data that this isn't quite the T-pose wasn't that great, right? Because remember, we're trying to match the T-pose to the model to whatever the pose is in the motion capture. We're trying to make them the same. And that's what makes the merger work. If I try to take this and merge this with this, it's going to be all sorts of messed up. Let me just try to do a messed up version real quick here. See what happens. There's no animation for me all of a sudden. That's weird. Same thing as you. What happened? Maybe I'll just really start at 0 then. Okay. Sure. If your mocap doesn't have a T-pose, because just set the endpoint. Where did I put this file at? In downloads. Super shy. Imports. All right, now we have animation. I'm not sure what happened. That was weird. So delete the one. Just the other character. Oh, I guess it's not a zombie anymore. I guess it's a ninja guy. That's all right. Character. I'll rename this to ninja. Also, another reason that something like that might happen, although this wasn't in my case, but in this drop-down menu right here, this is where any animations that were associated with the Mixamo file. The Mixamo file comes in with the T-pose as an animation. So if I select on, not Super Shy here, but I select Mixamo.com, see now nothing plays because the animation is a T-pose that doesn't actually animate at all. But if I switch this to Super Shy, which is my actual mocap file, now I have animation, right? So that's another place that things like that can happen. All right, what was I trying to do though? I wanted to show you setting T-pose and getting really weird results. So if I adjusted this just to say, maybe the T-pose was more in an A pose, not that this T-pose was bad, but if I characterize this now, I should hopefully, because I want to show you a messed up version, hopefully get weird results. Yeah, so see what happened there? Now my ninja's in his T-pose, but look, his T-pose actually looks like a flapping birdie pose, you know? Like, because I said my motion capture data's T-pose was this, it took that and raised the ninja's arms up. Because it took the T-pose, and I was like, no, it's actually up here with the T-pose. So it's very crucial that those T-poses are rock solid. But what if you didn't do a good T-pose? What if your actor was terrible? What if they forgot to do a T-pose? Well, that's all right. We can fix that. Let's see what other sorts of problem this causes. Now it just looks kind of, it's not that different, I guess, but it's a lot more, arms aren't as close to the waist as they should be here. Also, the fingers are kind of weird too. So what if I didn't have a T-pose and I wanted to make a T-pose? So let's just say that this motion capture model was, I don't know, they weren't paying attention. They were not listening to directions. It doesn't really matter that you did a T-pose on set, to be honest, because we can make a perfect T-pose in Motion Builder. So this can be a little tricky. Hopefully this is recording. It's blacked out right now. This can be a little tricky. Actually, I'm going to stop recording.